Himmel the Hero exposes one of humanity's worst flaws, doing the wrong things for the right reasons. To be Himmel the Hero is to do the right thing. And what if that is to yeet a demon? You mean yeeting danger from the world would save the world? You mean assassinations are necessary for the safety and security of the world? The reality and context of the times cannot be fully interpreted by the present day, if not logged, preserved to its fullest entirety. Even then, the warping of history is inevitable. A handsome, boyish look becomes a Chad. My bad, Flyme becomes the Chad. Himmel became mid. Nothing is wrong with Himmel the Hero himself, but his existence, notoriety, the statues, the written legends like Eivik the Sage's adventures during the era of Mythic becomes much more than the person himself. As time moves on, we are faced with the challenges of the myth, the legend, the hero from old tales that become warped into the imagination of the present time. In today's age of reality, we are constantly faced with repeating the same mistakes of the old, even though it is all spelled out in the history books. However, humans are flawed. Perception becomes the eyes of the beholder. Interpretations change based on the time period. And the hero we once knew are inspiring the villains we see today. Oh yeah, spoiler warning, but you know, it's a little bit too late. You're invested. And before we continue, it's another day in the Frieren Manga hiatus. Yamada Kanehito and Abe Tsukasa are securing the bag and then losing it. Because what they will do to the great mage Serie, the feet goddess! They delivered the updated script to Serie, and quite clearly, she was not pleased.
不合格だ。
The straightforward nature of Himmel the Hero's adventures, inspiring you to take down humanity's greatest threats and demons, like taking down a 7-demon sage of destruction in Bose the Immortal, the Hell Emperor Dragon, taking down those man-eating demons that deceive humans is something even a toddler can understand. However, we know life is way more complicated than to just simply find a creature that evolved to be your predator. Life becomes more complicated when your own worst enemy is yourself, your own race. In the case of the Frieren world, mana and magic hold the capacity to simply nuke an entire town off the face of the earth, including the nearby villages, by collateral damage. Enter Commander Lowe, aka Help of the Shadow Warriors, because that is exactly what happened to him and to a certain purple-haired girl growing up in the Southern Lands, where warfare reigns supreme over something. That something remains unknown as to why human versus human violence occurred, which included a time period where magic was no longer in the hands of humans, alluding to the backstory of the great mage Minas the Witch, where 20 years ago brought endless war to the Southern Lands and was accused of high treason. The context there is also currently fuzzy, but it was she who likely became a catalyst for whatever war was going on there. It was during a 50-year period where Denken referenced a turbulent era, potentially referring to whatever was happening in the Southern Lands. This was after the Demon King was already defeated and was supposed to be an age of peace, but humanity ended up fighting itself, at least when it comes to the Southern Lands. And as we all know, the Elder Sage of Corruption's killing piercing magic is Zoltrap. It became incorporated into humanity's magical foundation for warfare, and that looks to be what caused much of the death in the Southern Lands, including the death of Helt's sibling. With the statue of Himmel the Hero on the ground, it inspired a future Commander Reve, and is something that the current strongest hero at the time in the Southern Lands, Lernen, who is presently serving as Commander Reve's butler, was inspired by. Both were enamored and compelled by Himmel's feats, and both stand currently as Frieren's villains in the Foundation Festival arc. This is where I believe Kanehito is tapping into a historical human flaw between the context of what Himmel accomplished, the perception thereof, what people believe he could do, and the intended lessons behind his adventures. While the legends may vary and become grossly exaggerated, the danger becomes the inspiration behind them. That inspiration, magic, can make what was once unimaginable a reality. That nothing in this world is impossible. What was once an unbreakable barrier by Bulls the Immortal, an unbreakable great barrier made by the accumulated knowledge of humanity that sealed Macht inside of his golden land, and a barrier that Ganao thought was unbreakable made by the great mage Serie, Ashi no Megami. All barriers, mental and physical, can be broken. And that has been a constant theme throughout the entire story. And that is what is absolutely terrifying about what Commander Reve is trying to do. To save the world, you must yeet the dangers against humanity. Whether you are a demon, elf, monster, or human, death could be to humanity's benefit. Some may say that assassinations is a necessary evil. And some may also say it's just necessary. That is the entire moral conundrum of the Shadow Warrior's existence that stemmed as far back as the United Empire. What would Himmel the Hero do when faced against other humans? His entire adventure was to help humanity and fight demons. But is there a hero's party tale we are not aware of that involves making a choice to find the right decision amongst humans? To yeet or not to yeet? That is the question. In Commander Reve and Leiura's case, it's clearly to yeet. No matter what Leira did back in the day as humanity's strongest hero of the Southern Lands, it was never enough, and he was simply just too late to save everyone because he is only one person. Both of their motivations and inspirations were from Himmel the Hero. It inspired them to take matters into their own hands, to take it upon themselves, to save the world. It is something in chapter 147 that Leira apologizes to Help for, carry on that burden. This is actually a callback to what Yuba pointed out when everyone was discussing the Shadow Warriors. Everyone has their own ideals for a good in a peaceful world. And when you have the power and authority to make decisions beyond even what the Emperor is aware of, you have radicals that want to save the world in the name of peace, like yeeting the feet goddess. Sometimes when people have power, they try to do what? They try to do good with that power, which leads to different kinds of results. It's a constant theme in Frieren, and as a reflection of real life, the villains believe that they are in the right. People are naturally afraid of power and those that wield it. The masses are helpless against those like the great mage Serie that has walked this earth since the time of Mythic. With her in and the fact that the great mage Minas the Witch could be defeated means those with monstrous power in the world could be felled simply by a great coordinated effort. It's that collection of synergy that makes a single monster like Serie less of a threat. If you knew that someone had the power to nuke the world into oblivion, wouldn't you feel like you are walking on eggshells to not upset that person? What if Serie gets body snatched? What if she just decides one day that she has resentment that's built towards mankind and decides to destroy it? What if she gets hit with a deep depression that Craft the Monk won't break her back? I mean, anything is possible, right? This is to point out that while as an audience we know Serie isn't a bad person and her work with the Continental Magic Association has done nothing but good things for the world, for the most part, we already have a bloody mark in history that parallels Serie in many ways. That is, the great mage Minas the Witch being just that. Once again, I present to you, what would Himmel the Hero do in this situation? How would he resolve this? This is to also point out that Commander Reve comes from a perspective we can understand. It's just that he wants to assassinate our and get rid of the one thing that can create the most freaky things in the world. To us, we've seen the experience of Himmel through Frieren's adventures and flashbacks, but to everyone else, they are looking through the lens of a legendary figure, where their own imagination fills the gaps of context lost from those that actually live by Himmel's experiences. One thing is clear, is that yeeting humanity's threat is a viable option. Look at what the Hero's Party did to the Demon King and his army, and everything else that led up to that point. The controversial question would be, when is it okay to do so? To take it one step further of how scary Commander Reve's goals are, is the fact that not only one can imagine the great mage Serie's death, but he imagined and prepared for a world without magic. Demons and humans alike will lose their mana and be rid of magic. The laws of the world, rewritten in the time of myth, shall return to how they once were. If nothing is impossible, then everything is possible. Meaning in the eyes of the one that thinks he is righteous, has the power, and believes that they are making the best decision for a better world, that person's efforts are just as valid as Frieren's, Himmel's, and Serie's. So the foundation is set, the preparations are made, the visions of that future without Serie and without magic is going to happen. That's how much belief that the Shadow Warriors and Commander Reve have. So what would Himmel the Hero actually do to try and solve the situation for the best outcome?